Welcome to the Living Large Theater podcast with Gary Rodriguez, Billy Santiago, and producer Noe Ayala. Admission to the Living Large Theater requires only your sense of humor and thirst for knowledge as we explore community, entertainment, the arts, politics, and human nature. Time now for you to step inside the Living Large Theater.
And welcome to another edition of the Living Large Theater podcast. How are you? I am Billy Santiago with my good friend of 35 years, Gary Rodriguez, producer Noe Ayala. What's going on, fellas? How we doing today?
Hey, we're doing great. We're always doing great. I tell you what, man, if I open my eyes, I'm thanking God for the blessing of being alive another day, staying in the fight. This is the Living Large Theater podcast, and we are just really rolling along, getting ready for our big day on South Padre Island. It's going to be our Labor Day exhibition for the Living Large Theater podcast. Billy and I and Noe are going to be broadcasting from Courtyard by Marriott Hotel on the beach side of South Padre Island, and we're going to be in Bar Louie's. It's in the Courtyard by Marriott. What an awesome property. That guy, Barry Patel, and Alina Rivetta, the GM out there, they have really got a big-time magnet, big-time destination for you and your family for the Labor Day weekend, all the way through the rest of the year, just to go have fun, relax, and a nice, clean, quality property. That is the Courtyard by Marriott. The Living Large Theater podcast will be there. Hopefully you can stop by and say hi, and we're expecting a good visit from our friend, Mr. Fred Rodriguez, the Texas sportsman. He's going to stop by. We want to thank him for helping us arrange this broadcast at the Courtyard by Marriott. Billy, you know, every time I turn around, everybody ask me, hey, they didn't really care about my radio pass, but they want to know whatever happened to the Mad Mexican, and so that sort of has told me that there's an interest out there from, that people want to know about what happened at the radio station, the goings on, maybe about some of the personalities. We've had some big time personalities. AC Cruz, probably one of the best podcasters in the Tejano genre up in San Antonio. We're still good friends with him. So we want to have a little bit of radio ramblings. You up to that, Billy? Radio ramblings. Let's talk a little bit. So as I recall, Mad Mexican was at the top of his game. This is all through the 80s. I started working at B104 in 87. He was top dog. And
I came along in 88.
Yeah. And anytime that's right. And anytime there was something good that was about to happen or that was going to take place, Mad Mexican always had first right of refusal. I mean, if there was a big remote that was going to make some big money on the weekend, they offered it to him first, and then from there it trickled on down to the last guy in line, which is probably me.
I was the third in line back then.
There you go. So if Billy turned it down, Mad turned it down, and somebody else turned
Dusty
it down.
turned it down.
Dusty
then Gary. No, then Leah turned it down. Then Gary got an opportunity.
I would get the call, man.
It's funny, Gary. When I think about Mad, I think about the fall of 1988. Mad was doing a lot of mobile DJing. Him and Rick Butler, our engineer.
Yeah.
And any calls that came in from a mobile DJ would go to Mad first.
Yep.
Well, he had gotten 2 calls about doing something, and he couldn't do one of them. So he knew that I was interested in doing, some additional mobile DJing because, when I moved down here, I was had my mobile DJ business. So I had an opportunity to go to the Donna High School.
Uh-huh.
And first gig, okay? I'm thinking I'm all that in a bag of chips, I got my records and everything. So I show up, and it's an FFA event. So I'm thinking, I got to play some country. Okay, cool. I got some country,
Yeah.
Play some pop, play some rock, okay? So these kids start coming up to me, and they're asking me to play Tejano music. Mas, Mafia, Little Joe, and all these groups. I don't have any of their music. So I'm in a panic.
You got the OJs and the Temptations.
Yeah, I'm in a panic, man. So I reach out to Matt. He's doing another gig that night, and he goes, "Hey, I'll send Butler over there with a couple of greatest hit CDs. Just play them back and forth. You'll be fine." So Butler shows up, brings me the CDs, and for the majority of the night, that's what I was playing. It was 4 Tejanos CDs.
There you go. That's all you need.
And so that was my first introduction
Yeah.
to Tejano music
That's
and how
crazy.
important it was.
Well, you know, Billy, not to interrupt, but
You
you
did.
know, I did. But, you know, they say, you know what the difference is between German music and polka music and Tejano music?
No.
Tejano music's played on stolen instruments.
We'll be here all week, please. Trying to huevos rancheros. So, Gary.
You know, I used to deliver newspaper to the Mad Mexican on.
Are you
Orange.
serious?
Yeah, he lived on Orange Street.
Street. Yeah,
In
he's like,
McAllen.
where's my paper?
Did he ever tip you, man?
Oh, are you kidding?
You know,
No.
Matt used to get to the radio
Yeah.
station like at 3:00 in the morning. He used to go on at 6,
Yeah,
and he used to get there at 3:00 in the morning
because he had to do
prep.
Sarge and all the voices that he would do.
Yeah,
Yeah, and his show prep.
and he makes sure he had enough Chicago records to play because you know that was another issue with Matt.
Yeah,
Is he had to play Chicago songs during the show because he's the biggest. I mean, the biggest Chicago fan on this earth.
yeah, big time.
His dogs were named Chicago. He had license plates for Chicago. You know, so
It's Chicago.
Matt would show up at 3 a.m.
Gary'd show up at 6:30 right after my first newscast. was supposed to
Exactly.
play.
You know, and I used to show up when I started at B104. It was back in February of '88. I came on after Matt at 10:00. So I used to show up about 9:30, and we'd sit there and
Yeah,
we'd chit chat. Man, Matt was an interesting guy. I got to tell you, man.
he was very, very interesting. And I remember we did it when I first started in '87. We did a remote at the Western Auto in Mission, and we're there. And this lady, Matt had the biggest ego because everybody fed it. And this lady showed up with her 9-year-old daughter, and we're there trying to push tires from Western Auto. And she comes up to the Mad Mexican, and he loved being recognized. And she says, "I remember you. You're the Mad Mexican, aren't you?" "Oh, yeah, I'm the Mad Mexican." And she says, "Well, you got fat." And he looked at her and he said, "You think I got fat? My blank got fat too." And I was horrified. The lady was horrified. The daughter was horrified. They take off running, and we finish out the remote there. Well, Monday morning, we're in Lon Bason's office. The general manager, the lady had already called and complained that Mad said this. And so we're there and we're talking, and Lon goes, "Okay, guys, tell me what y'all did." And to Mad's credit, he goes, "Gary didn't say it. I said it." And he goes, "Okay, Gary, you can take off." So I walked out, and then a little bit later, Dusty Hayes grabs us all, and he puts us in the in the conference room. And he, Dusty's father, I think, was a psychiatrist or a psychologist,
Yeah.
something like that. And so Dusty gets in there, and he says, "Listen, you guys, when you're out on the town, you don't have to put yourself up here." He goes, "People already put you up there in their mind." He says, "It's up to you to bring yourself down to everybody's level." And the way he explained it, he says, "I don't remember going to your house and asking you to come work here." He said, "I remember each and every one of you." At that time, there's probably about 12 people in the room. He says, "I remember each and one of you coming here and begging me for a job. So clean it up, be a little more humble, and be nice to everybody." And I'm going to tell you, I will never, ever forget that advice from Dusty Hayes, because it keeps your feet on the ground. And I saw a lot of people, unfortunately, who they happen to get a on-air radio shift, and then they think
It's
that's
a privilege to have a radio show.
It really is.
I
Yeah.
mean, there's not too many radio stations in town. I mean, I'm going through a period right now where I'm sending out tapes and resumes to out of town radio stations because nobody in the valley's hiring right
But you're
now.
not going to leave, are you?
Well, I'm just feeling the waters out there. You just never know.
Oh,
You
okay.
know? I mean,
Wow.
I'm doing a little internet radio show now on the Live 365.
So I'm gonna have to put Noe on in the scout team here, and just in case we need a replacement.
Well, I don't think
There's a couple of DJs out there that don't have jobs now.
there'll be an opportunity will arise because I don't want to leave right now, but I just throw it
Yeah.
out there just to see if anybody's interested in what I bring to the table.
I'm going to tell you something, Bill. You and Dusty will always have my total respect for the job y'all did with Beach Bash. You remember Beach Bashes? We
Yeah.
would get out there on South Padre Island. I think was it summertime or spring? I don't
was
think it
in
was spring.
June. It
Yeah,
was
it
in
wasn't
June.
spring
It was in
break. It was
June.
in summertime. Man, you guys you had Richard Marks out there. You had Poison. Was it Poison or Pretty
No,
Poison?
that was spring break.
Those are spring breaks.
That was we
Oh,
partnered
okay,
up.
yeah.
We partnered up with Miller Lite and
Yeah.
and Budweiser. And
So
those.
the beach bashes, we had local bands. Remember Works? My friend Carlos Rendon, he was the drummer for the band Works. We were out there at Isla Blanca Park, and he's on the old flatbed, and he's drumming away. And next thing you know, he disappears. His little stool had fallen off the back of the 18-wheeler. And, you guys put those shows together, and I think they were to help benefit Teach the Children, didn't they?
I believe so,
yeah. We gave Channel 5 a bunch of money every year from those concerts. And then one time I think they turned it down because we had made some money for them by selling beer. And I'm like, who cares? Here's money.
Well, the odd thing there was you couldn't bring bottles on the beach.
Yeah.
So if you were going to have adult beverages, that had to be in plastic containers. And that was a pain.
Yeah.
It really was. And they bless Cameron County, man. They mean well, but they just started putting, hurdles in front of us. And so we decided, you know what?
Yeah.
If y'all don't want us here, we're done.
That's exactly what happened. I remember that Ken, what was that guy's name? He was a parks director out there. Ken Conway, I think it was.
Ken Conway.
Yeah, nice guy. Anyway, going back to the Mad Mexican. So the question is, I get it all the time. Hey, some people ask me, are you the Mad Mexican? I said, no. That guy was something else. He was a legend, a big time legend in this market, and a bigger time legend in his own head. But they want to know what happened, why he left. So we had this program director, one of the smartest radio guys I know, JD Gonzalez. So JD comes in one time and he tells the Mad Mexican, he goes, hey man, don't put kids on the radio anymore. And Mad says, why not? He goes, well, because mom and dad are getting ready and they don't want to hear a little 3-year-old mocoso going, can you put a declaration for my mommy? And he goes, so just don't do that. It just sounds like bad radio. And so Mad, I guess, conformed for a couple of weeks. And then one day we're there and JD walks in. He goes, Gary, Mad, I need to see you in my office when you get off the air. And we're like, okay. So we go in there and JD goes, hey, I told you, don't put little kids on the radio anymore. And he got into it with the Mad Mexican, and Mad Mexican says, it's my name up on the marquee. And JD pulled the classic move. I'll never forget it. JD grabs his business card off his little business card holder on his desk, and he holds it up there. He goes, yeah, it's your name on the marquee, but it's my radio station. And so Mad goes, well, if you don't let me do it my way, Gary and I are going to go across the street, which means go to another radio station. So Mad looked at me and JD goes, okay, well, you guys got to do what you got to do. And Mad looked at me and I said, hey, man, I said, I'm pretty happy here. I'm good. I'm good. And I think it was the saddest thing in the world, because I still have it in my mind, seeing Mad Mexican gather his books and his headphones. And
how long was he there? This was back, what, 90, 91?
Yeah, this happened in, I believe, 1990 when JD got there, and JD he's a radio disciplinarian. He's a radio education kind of guy. He
the
appreciates
thing is,
the
as a program
art
director, it's his vision of the radio station. It's
right.
his vision of how he wants his
but he bases
on-air
that
talent
on a
to
passion.
sound.
Yeah. He didn't just end up in radio. I mean, JD was born to be in radio, I believe.
But, it happens all the time, though, in this business, Gary. New management comes in. I mean, it happened to me last year. New management comes in.
Yeah.
They have different expectations of what they expect of their people, and I wasn't meeting the expectation. I understood that, man. Hey, I had a good 33-year run.
Everything changes.
Yeah.
Everything changes. So
and the way the business is going, I decided, you know what, it's time to get off the treadmill. The treadmill going about 10.
So Mad takes off, and that's it. Then next thing I know, I'm doing mornings with JD Gonzalez.
And I got to tell you this, and I'm not blowing smoke up your butt, but I really thought that you and JD were at that cusp of really taking off.
Oh, yeah.
In late 1993, it was November, December.
Yeah.
We were in the fall ratings period, and JD decided he was going to leave the market.
Well, he had some impetus there because Tishner, who owned KIWW, they wanted to break us up and more for.
Well, they saw what I was seeing,
and so they offered him a gig in San Antonio,
right.
and JD went, and I went up there a couple years later, and JD put me on the radio. I did a morning show kind of audition up there at KXTN, and I could have done it. He offered me the gig, you know, and
You didn't want to leave the valley.
I didn't want to leave the valley. I love it here, man.
I'm in the same boat, Gary. I love it down here. My kids, grew up here.
Yeah.
My daughter's gonna be a senior in high school, so but you always want to send packages out to see if there's any
Sure,
interest. I mean,
yeah.
I've had a couple of calls. I'm not gonna lie to you, but
we want you here
for the money they're gonna pay.
Yeah,
it's not worth leaving the market.
Well, in '89 they had the Mission bus crash, and I'm there doing the morning show with Mad Mexican, and we see Edinburgh Fire Department and ambulances just taking off, and it's about 7:30, I guess 8 a.m. And we didn't know what was going on. And Mad goes, "Hey, man, you better get in the van and follow one of those fire trucks, see what's going on." So I got in the van, the old yellow banana B104 van, and started following this ambulance. And we got all the way out to Bryan Road there in Mission, and I pulled up there, and that's where all the fire trucks had gone. And I was like, what's going on? And, I never knew what a caliche pit is. I grew up in Dallas. In Dallas, it's called a quarry. And so when I got there, there was it looked like people were standing on the water. But as you look closer, you could see like a yellow shadow under the water. And that was the school bus that had fallen into the caliche pit, which was pretty much full of water. And they were already pulling out, the lifeless bodies of the victims of that tragedy.
How did you deal with that emotionally, Gary? Because that had to have been very emotional.
Well, I wanted to cry. I'm an emotional guy, but when you're on the radio, and I had that big cell phone, probably
because you called back to the radio station reports,
yes,
and
I did those reports.
I could hear it in your voice.
It was tough. It was
how tough it was for you to broadcast.
Yeah, and I always believe that when you're doing that, you can't yet let your personal emotions show. Otherwise, I would have broken down and just started bawling like a baby. But I started sending stories not only to B104, but around the world. ABC, CNN, Austin, Chicago, and Houston. And then when all that was said and done, I guess about a week later, all the job offers started coming in from people that had heard the broadcast that I was doing from that tragedy.
You did an awesome job, Gary.
Thank you, brother. But I thank you. I really appreciate that. But it was, it was such an easy deal for me to turn them down. As a matter of fact, one girl, Mindy Miller, she was the news director for KTRH in Houston. She offered me 3 different jobs 3 different times, and I turned them all down. And I'll never forget, she says, "Gary, you're making the biggest mistake of your career by not taking these jobs." And I said, Mindy, I said, "I probably am, but I want my kids to grow up here in the Rio Grande Valley."
You know what? That's exactly what I was getting ready to say. It's more important that my kids grow up in an environment that's healthy, around family.
Yeah.
Sure, we don't have a lot of things that the big cities have.
Yeah.
But again, as far as
that goes both ways, we don't have a lot of things that the big cities have.
Right. And it comes back to relative to where you're at as far as salary. I mean, you may live in Houston.
Yeah.
And you may make a little more, but it's a lot of, it's a little bit more expensive in a town like Houston.
Yeah. And what is your price for happiness? Do you need more money, or can you be happy with where you are and what you have? I'm happy. I was always happy here.
And I didn't want to be a U-Haul DJ either.
Yeah. No,
I didn't,
they're everywhere. Those guys, I like that. That's a good way.
I've had friends. I had a friend of mine. He was from Seattle, Washington. His name was Truck Rogers.
Shout out to U-Haul.
Yeah. No, but Truck Rogers, nice guy. He was married. His wife was real. We became friends. Well, he had remember those camper tops you put on
trucks?
Yeah,
the back, yeah.
Yeah. That's how he traveled.
Wow.
Because he was always because he was a very opinionated guy.
Yeah.
And
getting blown out and hired somewhere else.
Exactly. And he goes, I'm a radio nomad, Billy. This is my life.
See, I couldn't do that.
I couldn't do it either.
I like stability. I like quality of life. I think there is no better place. And I really abhor when people start putting down the Rio Grande Valley, because all they do is they oversee all the goodness of it and they focus on the badness of it. And I'm just not going to have it.
Real quick, Billy, did that gentleman have family, kids, or anything?
No, it was just him and his wife and his 2 dogs.
Yeah, usually that's what usually happens when you have a lot of friends that don't like to travel. They have a family. I love to travel.
I love to travel too. Don't get me wrong.
No, but I'm saying if there's work,
yeah,
I'm gone.
Yeah,
but if you have,
we need to start looking for a backup producer. Huh?
No, but I'm saying like if you do have kids, it's more of a
Yeah. It's a what do you call it? It's like a magnet. It keeps you grounded. Yeah, and it gives you it's like an anchor. It gives you a reason to stay. And like I said, I wanted my kids to grow up and graduate with the kids that they went to pre-K with. And for me, that didn't happen. I mean, I went to 6 different elementary schools before I was in 6th grade, and it's tough making friends every year.
And me growing a military kid for 17 years
go.
of my life, every 2.5, 3 years, we'd uproot and go to another base and
Yep, and
meet new. Which, you know what, that was the greatest thing that could happen to me as far as growing up. You know,
Yeah.
being around different environments, getting to
it has
meet
a
new
big
people.
It has
you
its
know.
advantages.
But when I moved down here back in '88, and I decided, you know what, because down here it reminded me a lot of Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
You know, and I just said to myself, if I find the right woman, because I was just going through a divorce
Yes.
back then, you know, because my ex-wife didn't like it down here. I loved it down here.
Yeah, I love it here
You
too.
know, I mean, you can go to El Pato and get a carne quesada taco, man. I'm in heaven, man. You know, but I just decided I'm going to make the Rio Grande Valley my home.
Yeah.
If I stay in the radio biz, fine. If I don't, I'll find something else, and I'll just.
Well, you left a legacy here too, Bill, because you know, like you said, your time on the radio, you became a part of the community. I think that's something that you and I had going for us, is we understood we didn't just show up and we're going to leave. We're here and we're going to stay here. So
I always felt that, Gary, that I wanted to be a part of the community. I wanted the community to know that you and I, as members of the radio community, were here for them, whatever they needed. Good example, remember Sabrina Walker Hernandez?
Yep.
The lady from
Boys Club.
Girls and Girls Club.
Yeah.
She always leaned on us to help promote. And I was always about that because...
Hey, you know what? Speaking of that, not to interrupt, but I did.
He did.
Again?
Billy and I, and I'm going to tell you this, I don't care what they say, and you can come say it to my face if you want. Billy and I are single-handedly and solely responsible for the Freddie Gonzalez bust right there at the corner of Freddie Gonzalez and 18th Street in Edinburgh, because we did 2 Freddie Gonzalez Memorial.
We did 3. We didn't make a profit the first 2 years, but the third year,
we had the Memorial Day Fiesta right in the town square of Edinburgh.
Oh my God!
I met with Patrick Pierce from Austin Sculptures in South Far. Dolia Gonzalez gave us all Freddie's pictures.
She's such a sweet lady.
Yeah, and she gave us the pictures. We gave them to Patrick Pierce. He gave them to a gentleman, an artist who was the actual sculptor, and we put that statue there. I think Joe Ochoa was the mayor at the time. And, you know, hopefully they understand the impact that B104 had in this community, that we were a part of the community.
Let me tell you a quick story about our first Freddie Gonzalez Memorial Day Fiesta. It was the day of the event. We all get there. Mel Hart's providing music and staging and all that. Jim Mel Hart, what's up? And they pulled the power from the what they had already in the square. Well, come to find out, it wasn't enough power to generate the sound, lights, and all that at the stage from where we had.
That's just 110,
right? Well, no, it didn't have enough juice, so we couldn't find a generator locally, so we were calling around trying to find we finally found a generator in Corpus, and we were able to get it, but it took them 4 hours to get there.
Yeah.
And they got here about 12:30, 1 o'clock. The event started about 1 o'clock. We hooked it up, bum, 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 bum. Bam.
Yeah.
We got going, but I'll never forget that. And Jeffrey Hedgeman was our general manager at the time.
Yep.
And man, we were we were squirming, man. But the generator showed up.
We pulled it off.
The show went on, but man, we had a good time doing that show.
We pulled it off.
3 years, but it got to a point, you know, again, got a new general manager in '97.
Yeah. Well, I know what happened to the end of it. It was a little more sinister than that, in that we had, like you said, we didn't make money the first year. Second, third year we did, and that's how we were able to pay for that statue of Freddie Gonzalez. You know, unfortunately, people thought we were killing it and making money. So the Edinburgh Chamber said, we want to take it over. And we said, okay, well, you know, it's different when they're doing it as opposed to when we're doing it. Billy has access to all the artists. And
well, no, I mean, we just know how to put events on. I mean, I've done that all my life.
We gave it to them, and it never happened again. And
yeah, but you know what? It was a good 3-year run for us.
Had a blast. We always had fun.
And our goal was to get a a statue, a bronze statue. If you
Yep.
go to the Freddie Gonzalez Park there on Freddie Gonzalez,
Yep,
and
it's there.
it's right there.
It's under the olive tree.
You got Gary's autograph on the bottom of it there.
Yeah, I tried. They wouldn't let me. Hey, I tell you what, man, this is Radio Ramblings on the Living Large Theater podcast. Don't forget, see if you can join us on Monday, August 29th. We're going to be at the Courtyard by Marriott, Bar Louie's. We want to thank Barry Patel. We want to thank Alina Rivera. We also want to thank Fred Rodriguez for helping us set that up. Radio Ramblings. Bill, do you remember the New Kids on the Block concert?
Oh, my God.
It happened, and it was
Chris Julian, Fajita Cook-Off promoter.
It was the shortest concert in history.
It lasted a minute
in 90 seconds.
I'll never forget 93 seconds.
Yeah.
I'll never forget this. This is the day of the event. We're out there at the baseball field in Mission, and
it was Mission.
The event, the event, the venue holds about 10,000, and this was. We booked New Kids on the Block in January of '89 before they came out big, and we had a good relationship with the record company. Dusty and I would be talking to them all the time, and boom, when the opportunity came to book New Kids on the Block on a radio promotion show, we got them. Well, little did we know they were going to blow up like they did.
Yeah, from January to July, they went from malls to stadiums.
And so when they came down here, it was sound check time. Their management, their road people come out to the venue, and I'll never forget that the road manager looks at the security gate in the front of the stage, and he looks at me. He goes, "Who's responsible for this?" I go, "It's Mel Hart Music." He goes, "This is coming down, then I can guarantee you. And when it does, we're going to have our van backed up.
Yep.
And our boys are going to get in the van, and we're going to take off." I just want to let you know that right now.
Yeah, we drove those vans. I drove one of them.
Yeah. And so here it comes. Day of the show. We also had Taylor Dane.
Yeah.
On the show.
Tell it to my heart.
Yeah. And so when it came for New Kids on the Block to come on, boom, we brought them on stage. We had close to 20,000 people.
It was crazy. It was kind of dangerous.
It really was.
People started getting on the stage,
and there were kids in front of the stage getting squished against the barriers. So they were lifting kids, pulling them out of the front, taking them to the back, and then when New Kids came on, oh my God, the barriers came down, and like they said,
they were gonna take off.
They got in the
van. It was crazy.
And they took off, man. So
I had two of them with me. I had Joey and the one that looks like Herman Munster. I forget what his name is, but I had to take them back to the Sheraton. They were staying at the Sheraton on South 10th Street. And then we found out on Monday that they had gotten in trouble because they took taxis to Reynosa, and they didn't tell anybody where they were going. You got New Kids on the Block, biggest phenom in music, and they're wandering the streets of Reynosa. So
that was one for the books. I'll never forget. We had this big inflatable radio that was set up as you enter the venue, parking.
I actually thought that, excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt, but I just did.
You did.
I thought the fajita cook-off was in McAllen.
It moved.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Wherever Chris could get the best deal, that's where it was.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so me and Dusty had to go because we were afraid that people were going to poke holes in the inflatable because they were pissed off because New Kids only played 93 seconds, And so me and Dusty, we took our B104 shirts off and turned them inside out.
Cowards.
And we walked over to the inflatable.
Cowards.
And we unplugged it, and so it kind of came down. But gosh, I'll never forget that, man. That
How about Ricky Martin? We brought Ricky Martin here in '96.
Oh my gosh.
We had Othel Brand give him the key to the city at the Embassy Suites in McAllen. It was great. It was awesome. We had some great years, and I tell you what, man, there is no place better to bring a family up than here in the Rio Grande Valley.
Got that right, Gary, and we appreciate everybody's listening today. It's the Living Large Theater podcast. You can find us on all the platforms, Apple, Google. You can go to Spotify. We'd love for you to leave a comment. Let us know how we're doing.
And we know you're not going to listen to the whole show all at once. Nobody does. I don't.
If you have a suggestion for a topic on a show we can do, leave us. What's the email address, Noe?
The Living Large podcast at gmail.com. And if you guys want to come on the show,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Give us a call. Let
Let
us
us
know.
We're always looking to interview people of interest because
There's nobody too big and nobody too small that is not welcome here on this show, the Living Large Theater podcast. Make sure you join us for the Labor Day weekend happening at Courtyard by Marriott on South Padre Island.
And next week too, we're in supporting teachers, police,
Nice. That's right.
administrators.
We're going to have Mario Bracamontes,
back
Carlos
to school next
Bracamontes.
week. You
Yep.
know, I know my daughter starts on Monday.
All right. Have a good one. Peace.